Okay, so very good morning, dear participants. I feel very happy and honored to handle this session on the four major problems that keep people stuck in their life, career, or business, and how to deal with them using NLP. So I welcome you to this program, and let's make it as interactive as possible. You can, I'll give you some space for asking questions. Once I finish a particular concept, I'll give you some space for asking questions. And we can also have a dedicated question and answer session at the end. So I would want you to be fully focused because this is a high value content. This has been very, very useful. And this is one of the major themes in my training programs, be it corporate training programs or public programs. These four major problems are core areas in which most of the people have some challenges. So this could be of really big use to you. So I want you to really stay focused and be available and utilize this webinar to the best extent possible. So before that, let me ask this question. Am I visible? Am I audible? You can type in the chat box. Okay, fine. Thank you. So let's start. Let me share my screen here. I hope you are able to see the screen. So the topic that we are going to talk about is about the four major problems that keep people stuck in their life, career, or business, and how to deal with them using NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's a form of applied psychology. It's a form of an applied psychology. I'll give you a small brief about what is NLP. And before that, how many of you are already familiar with NLP? Please let me know by type in the chat box. If you're already familiar, type yes. Otherwise, please type no, so that I can have an idea. If you're already familiar with NLP, please type yes. Otherwise, just no, so that I can understand. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your response. So once again, I welcome you to this webinar. This webinar is based on applied NLP principles and practices, very, very application oriented, so that I can straight away start applying it right from the end of the webinar itself. So it's highly application oriented. This is what I use in my training and coaching programs. So you can keep your audio muted so that if there is any background noise, there may not be a disturbance to other participants. However, you can unmute and ask me questions. That's quite okay with me. Let's make it as interactive as possible. So I thank you for your presence and time. It could show that you are interested in your own growth and development, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And this webinar can help you in this particular objective of growth and development, right? People don't work for money alone. Having a sense of purpose, having a sense of growth and development is very, very fundamental, right, for human existence. People really want to learn and grow. That's a very important aspect in their life. And so this webinar can help you in that particular area. So the agenda for us today, I'll start with the basics of NLP. I'll also give you a small introduction about myself and connect it with the NLP principles and practices with respect to what is that I'm doing. And then we'll talk about the four major problems that keep a person stuck in his career, business, or life, and how to deal with them using NLP. So, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. I'll be presenting you an opportunity for those of you who are interested for having a further learning with me. So that is the agenda. So who am I? Basically a mechanical engineer working in a very safe and secure government job, an engineer turned trainer and coach. I was working in a very safe and secure job, and I was happy being an engineer, but I wanted to become a trainer because I was interested in the psychology part. I wanted to understand the human mind, how the human mind works, how people get motivated, where do they get their drive from, and why do they do certain things? Why don't they do certain other things? So I was very curious about that, and I did my MSc in counseling and psychotherapy, and then NLP also happened parallelly in my life, and that has been a phenomenal turning point. So I wasn't happy engineer. However, there was this constant pull of wanting to become a trainer. And so some 12 years before, I quit my job and started my own corporate training organization. After having undergoing lots of training myself and being certified, and then I started my own organization. And from then on, the journey has been really phenomenal, fabulous. We have been doing lots of training programs pan-India for leading corporates. More than 15 years of corporate training experience, more than 1,200 days of corporate training programs so far I have done for many MNCs, more than 1,300 hours of coaching, because gradually, right, once you are a trainer, you come to know, and particularly when you learn NLP, you come to know the effectiveness of the coaching, and then you put yourself on a coaching journey that naturally happens. The coaching and facilitation processes so effective, and more than 1,300 hours of coaching individuals, executives, business owners, and corporate leaders in various walks of life. Learn, apply, test, and teach from experience has been my philosophy. I've been fascinated with the NLP models, right? It's so deep, right? It's so powerful, and it's so application oriented, very practical in nature, and the field is really exploding. Lots and lots of people, psychologists, and right, people in different walks of life learn NLP and come out with their own contributions to NLP. The field is really exploding in nature with lots and lots of frameworks, and I love those frameworks. I myself have contributed a few frameworks for NLP, so it has been really a fascinating learning process. So I keep learning and teaching at more and more deeper levels. I'm an author of 4 books. 3 books about personality development, and 1 book about NLP. And another book of mine is a compilation of short stories. I'm a story writer that has appeared in leading magazines. That is my 4th book. I'm also interested in haiku, because I think haiku is a very powerful tool for building self-awareness. So I'm interested in haiku writing, and I conduct haiku workshops. So that is about me, my mission. I would like to connect my mission with the NLP principles. I help individuals, executives, and entrepreneurs create breakthroughs in their life. So if we we can observe our life, the growth doesn't seem to take place in a linear way. It's like we have a breakthrough, we grow, and then there is a plateau, and then there is another breakthrough, and then plateau, and then another breakthrough, and then plateau and break. So these are critical breakthroughs that we have in our lives. When we have a moment of breakthrough, then our consciousness increases, our levels of consciousness increases, our awareness of the purpose, everything goes for a redefinition. Now the question is, these breakthrough points, are they under our control? Can we choose to have them, or we just let them happen? Right? So that's a very important question that put me thinking in a very deep thinking mode. So I feel that NLP can help us to have a reasonable control over these breakthrough points. Right? These plateaus are our comfort zones, right? And so, good is the worst enemy of best, whereas bad is the best friend of best. So the more we are in our comfort zones, we might be not in a position to look for breakthroughs, but even in that space, NLP can really help us by creating breakthroughs in ourselves. And how does that happen? By challenging. So I help people create breakthroughs in their lives, even when they are in a comfort zone, by challenging their existing thinking processes and limiting belief systems. So this is the primary work of NLP, where you challenge your own thinking processes, right? What has helped you come up to this level may not help you to go to the next level. So the world is not really outside there, it is inside us, right? That's something so profound when you observe, when you learn and observe NLP. So our own thinking processes and our own limiting belief systems could create a glass ceiling, which may not help us go to the next level. So by challenging that is a very I would say, very versatile way of creating breakthroughs. That's what I do. I also help people access their own inner resources. This is another very significant point of NLP. NLP believes people already have all the resources they need. For example, right, when someone comes to me and says, I'm not in good communication, I'm not a good communicator, it need not necessarily be true. For example, right, as children, we were very good and effective communicators. One of the evidence of effective communication is getting what we want, right? That is a solid, effective evidence that we are communicating well. When we communicate and get what we want, that is effective communication. And as children were, right, mostly we were getting what we wanted. We were so flexible in our communication styles, right? When to talk with father, when not to talk with mother, what is the tonality that has to be used, what is the facial expression that we need to have when asking for something. Everything we were learning unconsciously. That's called as a modeling process. So we already know how to communicate, but as we become older, right, our communication style starts freezing and we become, in a way, inflexible in our communication styles. But it doesn't mean, right, we cannot communicate that way. So it's a question of accessing our resources deep within, which are already there. And NLP believes people already have all the resources that they require. And what do we use those, do with those resources? It's a question of vision, right? NLP believes in a vision-filled life, vision-filled life where purpose and meaning have their own intersection, right? A vision-filled life where purpose and meaning intersect. And that is, right, a powerful way to really live and experience life. And for that, co-creating strategies and for achieving that vision and bringing their own commitment. So again, this is a very important word, right? The commitment process, because this is where most of us struggle. We do have a vision. We do have very strong goals. We also have strategies, but there could be something within us, right? That is preventing us to start taking action on at a consistent level. The consistency matters. So that commitment is very important. And I help people in bringing commitment by being an accountability partner for them. So as a coaching partner, I help them to gently but firmly move out of their comfort zones and explore their full potential. Right? This life is all about understanding our own potential and to what great extent we can contribute, and in the process be more happy and less stressful. So that is the idea behind my mission, my creed, awareness. Awareness is the basis of change. Right? Without being aware, it is very, very difficult to change. So awareness comes in three forms, or I would say in three segments. It's about identifying patterns. The key to change lies in identifying the patterns. There are three types of patterns. Normally, we talk about in NLP: patterns in thinking, patterns in the language that we use to communicate with others, and also very importantly, how we communicate with our own self. And the third is patterns in behavior. So the ability to identify this, either when you self-coach yourself and when you coach others, identifying the patterns, because the key is in the patterns, right? Patterns are either very helpful or very limiting. So that awareness about patterns, particularly most of these patterns could be at an unconscious level, becoming aware of those patterns and the results which they produce are a very key, I would say, a key area for being successful, for becoming successful. So awareness, becoming aware of our own unconscious patterns, and also the results that they are producing. And then freedom, right? NLP defines freedom in a very, very, I would say, very useful way. So a victim is a person who doesn't have any choices. Victim is defined as a person who doesn't have any choices. I have no other way. I have to go through this. I can't do anything else. I'm stuck. So these are normal, common victim language patterns, which says that the individual is devoid of any choices. Right? He or she doesn't have any choices. Whereas freedom is our ability to create more choices. So one of the interesting definitions of NLP, NLP is all about creating more personal choices in our lives. The more choices we have, the more free we are. And then the third one is the purpose. So I'm aware of my patterns. And I'm also able to create more choices, but everything is towards a very specific purpose. Of course, life needs to be fun-filled, right? There should be a fun element. There should also be a purpose element. So one of the happiest ways of living is having a healthy balance of fun and purpose, right? That would be my definition of having a happy life. A happy life is having a very healthy combination of fun and purpose. So this is my creed, and I strive to uphold my creed in my own life. I also help my clients work on this, right? It's an ongoing journey, right? It could be challenging, but very, very interesting. So what is NLP? So quickly, let me give you a small brief about NLP. In my website, there is a completely full-fledged webinar, right? 90 minutes webinar, which talks about NLP in a very detailed way. It's totally free. If you are interested, you can access that webinar from my website, and you can have a look at it. So I'll give you a small brief about NLP. So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Neuro refers to the brain and nervous system, the mental pathways of our five senses by which we see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. Our nervous system is the basis for all our experiences, right? Without that particular nervous system, the five sensory pathways will not be able to have an external experience at all. So the neuro and what is special about neuro? The neurons, they are the first to come, last to go. And two important functions of neurons, which very unique to those neurons, two things. I just wanted to make a note of it. Very neurons are the first to come, last to go. And two important faculties of the neurons are memory and identity. So these are two key functions of the neurons, where they retain the memory and the identity. And the central nervous system is very, very, I would say, specific for us to have experiences from the external world. So neuro refers to the brain and the mental nervous system. And then the linguistic, right? You would be aware, refers to the language and how it affects us. This is something pretty significant because we use language to interpret our experience. Once we have an experience, right, what do we do with that experience? Is something very important for us to contemplate. Once we get an experience, what we do with that experience. What we do is we use language to interpret and give a very specific meaning to that particular experience. I'll give you a very small example to help us understand this better. Let's say there is an employee who is sitting in his office table, and an employer the boss passes by. So as soon as the employee looks at the boss, he gets up and wishes the boss a happy good morning. Normally, the boss wishes back and smiles and wishes back and passes by. That's what normally happens. That is a normal experience of the employee, the boss wishing back. But one day, when the employee stood up and wished the boss, the boss didn't wish back. With a very stern face, the boss passed by and went to his cabin. So this is the new experience for an employee. Something so different from the ordinary, a new experience. And what does the employee do? He can't simply ignore that and go back to his work, because human beings are meaning-making machines. We crave for meaning. We are meaning-making machines, right? We want to have meaning, and for creating a meaning, we have a very important faculty, the language faculty. So we use meaning, and then we use a language and give a meaning. Now let's come up with the choices. What could the employee come about? What are the different types of meanings the employee can attribute to this particular experience of the boss not smiling? First meaning could be that the employee from his memory can understand that he had done a mistake maybe 3 months before, and now the boss has found it out. So first meaning is the boss has found out a mistake which I made 3 months before, and now he's going to call me to his cabin and fire me. So that could be one meaning. The second meaning is the employee could feel that someone has bad mouth, someone has complained about him to the boss. And so the boss is dissatisfied with me. So that could be the second meaning the employee has given to this particular experience. I'm trying to be just, that could be so many other things. I'm just trying to be creating a few choices, right? What are the options here? The third meaning would be, there are rumors that there is going to be downsizing, and maybe I am on the list. So I'm going to get a pink slip, and there is downsizing. So these could be the different meanings which the employee gives for that particular experience of this boss not replying him back. So now let's say what will be the behavior. Please understand the behavior comes from the meaning that we give to the experience. So if the first meaning, if the employee gives the first meaning, I had made a mistake and the boss has found it out, he's going to call me to his cabin and shout at me, then maybe his behavior would be how to create justifications, how to defend himself, right? That would be his entire behavior. If he comes out with the second behavior, someone has said something about me, then maybe his behavior would be to find out that person and understand what has been said about me. The third is, right, if he gives a meaning that there is going to be a downsizing, I'm going to get a pink slip, maybe his behavior is to update his resume. So we need to understand that the meaning, we are meaning-making machines, right? We crave for meaning, and whatever experience we have a tendency to give meaning to that particular experience, and that meaning is given by the use of language. So language is the medium of thinking. Except for a few of us who might be visual thinkers, most of us rely on language. In fact, thinking is using language on our own self. We call it as auditory dialogue, auditory internal dialogue, auditory digital. So if you ever observe your own thinking, you find out it be in a form of a conversation which you have with yourself. So thinking is a conversation which you have with yourself, and if you observe further, you would find that your thinking is in the form of question and answers. You ask questions yourself and you answer them yourself. Should I have done that? No, I shouldn't have done that. But I didn't have any choice. No, you could have waited for some more time until some more information has come. No, I was an absent. I can't wait for that. So it's a conversation which you have with yourself, and it's in the form of question and answers. So we can very well say language is the medium of thinking. And believe me, you're going to see sometime down the line, you define yourself by the way you communicate with yourself. So our own communication with ourselves defines who we are. So communication is not only with people around. I would say, a more significant part of communication is how we communicate with ourselves. So that gives us a drastic scope for NLP to become aware of our own communications, our own thinking patterns. When I think, what is that I do? What is that I communicate to myself? And what are the very important words that I keep on using in my communication to myself? And we can understand that our communication to ourselves defines us very powerfully. The third part is the programming part, refers to how we organize and sequence our actions to achieve specific results, and is based on the meaning which we give to experiences. So there are some background noises. I request the participants to keep their mic muted. If you want to ask me a question, you can always unmute and ask. But I request, please keep your mics muted so that other participants are not disturbed. So programming in a way refers to the action points. Right? Our actions are very specific behaviors which are intended for getting very specific results. So in a nutshell, I'll give you the philosophy of a nutshell. This is a very important slide. So the neuro is all about having the experiences from the outer world through the five senses. And what do we do with that experience? We use the linguistic capability that we have and give a meaning to that experience. Then the question is, what is the immediate cause of a behavior? The immediate cause of the behavior is not experience. Let me repeat it. The immediate cause of behavior is definitely not experience, but it is the meaning which we give to that experience. What was the experience? The boss didn't smile back, didn't greet back. That is experience. But the behavior doesn't directly come from that experience. It comes from the meaning that we attribute to that particular experience. And Very importantly, this in a way, right, gives us tremendous leverage. The moment we understand this, right, normally, right, let me go back and talk about this point. Normally, our experience has both positive and negative elements. I hope you agree. Our experience has both positive and negative elements. If you choose to focus on the positive, it's okay, right? It's okay. We are happy, we are less stressful. But what happens when we too much focus on the negativities? We want to change them and make them positive. If you are able to make them positive, it is well and good. But what happens when there is a negative experience around us, which keeps repeating and it is very difficult to change? That becomes a very important first. If I'm able to change something negative to positive, it's quite okay. But what happens when I'm not able to change that particular negative experience? Then the question comes as we keep struggling to change that experience, right? We go through lots of struggle. And one of the ways in which suffering is defined as, it's a very insightful definition. Suffering is defined as argument with a persisting reality. Is arguing with a persisting reality. The more we argue with a persisting reality, the more we suffer. So argument is defined as, suffering is defined as an argument with persisting reality. The more we argue, the more we struggle, the more we suffer. So NLP philosophy is this: if an experience, if it is negative, if you're able to change, well and good. If you're not able to change, at some time you need to give a pass, look back, and one of the best things that we can do is give a better meaning for the same experience. And this way is called as a concept of reframing in NLP. Very, very powerful tool in NLP. If you're able to give a different meaning, a better meaning, what happens is definitely a better behavior comes up. When the meaning becomes better, the behavior becomes better. And the beauty of a better behavior is indirectly gives you a better experience. That's something very powerful, right? Instead of struggling with that negative experience, which is very persisting, if you can choose to give a better meaning to that experience and a better behavior comes up, and that better behavior indirectly gives us a better experience. So that's why NLP, I would prefer to define NLP as the art and science of changing the meaning for better. It's both an art and it's a science. Art and science of changing the meaning for better. So what are the three? NLP has three tools for working on the meaning. It is called as arm of NLP. So A stands for anchoring. R stands for reframing. And M stands for modeling. So by using the arm, where you anchor your positive experiences so that you can remind them very quickly, give a different meaning, try to understand the intention behind the meaning, and try to understand, change the context, right? In which context this behavior or this happening could be more useful. When you work with the content and the context part, you will be able to change the meaning. And you can also look at people who are having the same challenge, but dealing it in a better way. We can choose to learn from them in terms of strategies and beliefs and value system. So very powerfully, in a nutshell, NLP is all about, right, anchoring your past experiences, trying to give a different meaning to those experiences that you have, and trying to learn from people who have a similar sort of a negative experience, but are handling it better in other way, who are getting better results than yourself, and trying to learn from that. So these are the anchoring, reframing, and modeling of NLP in a nutshell. So my perspectives about NLP, NLP brings some unconscious processes into conscious awareness, and thereby helps create more and better choices. Because please remember, NLP is all about increasing personal choices. The more choices we have, the more free we are. And NLP is all about an individual. NLP helps an individual to set very strong and clear goals. Very important, and try to come up with application aspects, very clear goals, build a better relationship, how to build rapport, and how to work with people, observe and listen more. NLP helps you, right? There are so many activities. I would say there are so many insights which can help you understand that observing is really listening. Using your five senses, having clear communication channels, NLP talks about so powerfully about these aspects. Again, let me repeat, real listening is real observing, trying to understand the plethora of so much data that are coming from people. In fact, the biggest data coming from an individual is through his behavior and body language, his or her behavior and body language, and how to observe that. NLP brings too much, I would say, very wonderful focus about our ability to observe and listen more deeply and build behavior flexibility. So if something is not working, do something else. In the name of hard work, let's not keep struggling. There is a lock which has been locked and many keys. It doesn't make sense to take one key and then try and open it. But if it doesn't open, it doesn't make sense to keep working with the same key. In the name of hard work, you need to go for another key and see whether it could be useful. So the behavioral flexibility is a very important component, which is highly highlighted in NLP. It helps in pacing, leading, motivating, and coaching self and others. So ultimately, NLP for me is ultimately right a coaching process where you can coach yourself and also others. So the four major problems with me, let us quickly go to the main area. Here I want to talk about the four major problems that keep people stuck. So how did I arrive at? That's a very important question. The four major problems are based on my coaching and training programs, my training and coaching experiences. These are also based on the testimonials which I got from my participants after a few months and sometimes even after years of my training program. How did the training programs help them? What are the main areas in which they were able to find utility value from my training and coaching programs? And then that distilled into these four, I would say, major problems, which the training programs and coaching programs help the clients to deal with. And they are very specific in nature. We shall see them one by one. We shall also discuss the solutions. So let's start here. The number one problem is lack of clarity. It might come as a surprise to you, but this is the truth. Normally, people, when they come to me for my coaching and training programs, they are very clear about what is that they don't want, but they may not be very clear about what is that they really want. Resulting in lots of confusion and really not knowing what is that I really want. So normally it takes around 1 or 2 sessions to probe very deep and become very clear about, yes, this is what I really want in my life. This might seem simple to you, but in reality, this matters a lot. And the solution is having a well-formed outcome. The NLP solution for this is not being clear. Is about having a well-formed outcome. So take the example of a runner. Let me give you some few examples. So let's take a case of a runner. What makes him run faster? So let's say there is 100 meters dash. And there is a person standing hereby. And normally let's assume this is not Usain Bolt. Let's assume it takes around 35 seconds to run the 100 meters. Now, how can we make him run faster? One of the ways is to have a golden pot. Pot of gold at the end of 100 meters. And once he comes to know that there is a pot of gold, maybe he is able to run faster and cover the distance in 25 seconds. Another way is to put a mad dog behind. And once a mad dog is behind, maybe he is able to run still faster in 25 seconds. So this is just a metaphor where we need to understand the pot of gold is called as the pleasure principle. The pleasure principle, whereas the mad dog is called as the pain principle. So these are the two principles that define our life. Either we work towards having more pleasure or we have a tendency to run away from pain. So this moving towards, this running towards goal is called as a moving towards. Dear friends, I want you to stay focused. This is something very, very important. A moving towards pattern. When you move towards something, it's called as a moving towards. And when we run away from pain, it's called as a moving away. Normally, in the first session of coaching, people are most probably in a moving away. I don't want this type of relationship. I don't want this type of job. I don't want this type of boss. I don't want this type of colleague. I don't want this type of experience. They are very clear about what is that they don't want, and most probably they will be in a moving away. Of course, which is most motivating? Is it pot of gold or is it a mad dog? Definitely, the pain principle is a big motivator than a goal. I told earlier. Being good is the worst enemy of best, but bad is the best friend of best. So the pain factor gives a person a very strong reason to be motivated. But just moving away alone will not help. If you are running away from so many things, where will we land? If you don't know where to go, which bus will you board? A very important question of NLP. If you don't know where to go, which bus will you board? So we may run very fast, but may we run in different directions, very, very different directions, and maybe end up with a tiger. That is the biggest problem with moving away goal. It could be highly motivating. It could put us into action mode very fast. But the question is there a healthy balance of a moving towards goal? So NLP strives to achieve a very healthy balance so that there is a right component, right balance between a moving away, which helps you start taking, which helps you take action. If you have just only a moving towards goal, we keep postponing, procrastinating, let the dreams dimine, assume that we have much time, and maybe we can look at it later. Lots of procrastination could set up if we do not have a moving away goal. And we may tend to tolerate things, right? Tony Robbins came up with this wonderful quote. You will not be able to change things which you are able to tolerate. If you tolerate something, you will not be able to change it. So the moving away is something very important, but that's not the end all. We need to balance it with the moving towards goal. And so this question becomes very significant. What is that you want? What is that you really want? And just an assumption, if God comes in front of you and asks you, what does it want? What is that you want? I'll give you 20 seconds. Will we be able to answer that question in very specific terms? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. Am I very clear about what is that I want? Because unless we know where we need to go, we will not be able to choose the transport. We will not be able to choose the bus. So there is a pot of gold and there is a mad dog. What are we driven by? Is there a healthy balance? You know, the first day, first show concept. People are able to stand in the queue for 3 hours to get the ticket. They're able to go through so much pain if they know what is that they want. For a cricket match, they are able to go through so much pain because they are very clear about what is that they want. So if we don't have a golden part, we will not be able to bear the pain in the journey. So a very strong moving towards goal has two elements. It's hexes set direction. It also helps us set, I would say, ability to bear the pain. Whereas only a moving away goal, which right we are very clear about, may not help us set direction. We just assume, shoot in the dark. So how do we deal with that? Mad dog or pot of gold? While mad dog motivates you, the pot of gold gives you a sense of direction and purpose. It also helps you deal with the discomfort in the path. Having the healthy balance is the key. So how to deal with confusion? The answer is well-formed outcomes. It's a very, I would say, very structured process in NLP, which would take maybe 1 or 2 sessions to really go deep and try and understand what is that I really want. A long-term well-formed outcome need to be based on your sustained inspiration. Some say it is passion, but I would go by the word sustained inspiration. That's the inspiration that you have. Do you have a sustained inspiration? And the sustained inspiration is mostly based on our values, particularly our 5 top core values. We call them the top 5 core values. And the problem is most of our top 4 or 5 core values could be unconscious in nature. So where do I get my inspiration from? And for that, we need to understand what are our core values. And the problem is most of the times our values are unconscious, and NLP helps us to uncover these values and make a very conscious, I would say, prioritization among those values. So what are you really inspired with? And is it sustained? And for what that inspiration, for what value to fulfill do you have that inspiration? We need to become aware of that. Right? You would have heard about the 40+ group. People who are more above 40, right, suddenly get into this idea. They start feeling a sense of emptiness. Why am I working so hard for? I'm not very sure. And what is the deeper values that still are not fulfilled within me, and they are creating a sense of emptiness? It's called as a 40+ club, where we have a tendency to pause and reconsider, right, all our aspects of our life. So that could happen much earlier if you are able to understand our sustained inspiration and the top 5 core values which you are trying to fulfill. And skill sets, what are we good at? What are our competences? What are our intelligences? So I would prefer to use the word, what are our intelligences? Is it logical intelligence? Is it do we have a flair for understanding people? The interpersonal intelligence, or there is something which is called as an intrapersonal intelligence, where we put ourselves in a very specific focused zone, trying to understand our and fulfill our potential. That's an intrapersonal intelligence that we have, trying to understand our own selves. That's a very important intrapersonal intelligence, which is directly connected with the leadership traits. So that we are able to like let go of some things in our life and hold on to certain things in our life with an awareness, with a consciousness. So what are the skill sets that we have? And what is our deep driving desire? So these are some very important questions we need to understand so that we can minimize our regrets at the later end of our life. The idea is that the lesser regrets we have, the more happy we are. So you would have heard about the deathbed mentality, right? Where it is said people have regrets mostly at the deathbed, and those regrets are about the things which they have not done rather than things which they have done. Research seems to indicate that. So minimizing the regrets is to put us on a path that could be more adventurous, that could be more based on curiosity, that could be based on certain factors in which we understand ourselves more and lead a more fulfilling life. So it's all about vision. It's all about your long-term goals. It's all about your mid-term goals. It's all about your short-term goals. And the alignment, right? The perfect alignment between all three. So that is the ultimate purpose of a well-formed outcome. Are you in alignment? Are you in congruence? NLP uses this word congruence. So well-formed outcome should answer these questions thoroughly. I'll give you a few sample questions. Right? You can take a screenshot if you want. What is really wanted? Is it a moving away or a moving towards goal? Is there a healthy balance between moving away and moving towards? Are you really clear about this? NLP wouldn't encourage goals which are called as reactionary goals. Reactionary goals are goals which we set for trying to prove something for someone. Those are called as reactionary goals. So it could be a form of a moving away goal where you move away from your own right deep driving desire. So becoming clear about this could help us in the long run. Is it internally referenced or externally referenced? Do you want the goal for yourself, or do you want those goals for, right, as I said, trying to prove something to someone, trying to impress someone? That is an externally referenced goal. Whereas if you're in alignment with what you really want, then that goal is said to be an internally referenced goal. Very specific in terms of BAK. Again, this is a very strong evidence procedure. Will you be able to see what you will see after you have achieved the goal? What will you be hearing after you have achieved the goal? And how will you feel after you have achieved the goal? Very specific in terms of BAK. B is visual, A is auditory, and K is kinesthetic. The BAK model of NLP, which is very, very useful in therapy and coaching. Once you are able to have a very strong evidence procedure of what will you see, hear, and feel after you have achieved the goal, that gives you a very clear sense of direction. And there is an ecology check. Ecology check is again a very important aspect of NLP because, see, how do you define a problem? Problem is something that is a present state and there is a desired state. And what is a problem? Problem is the gap between the present state and the desired state. And what is ecology check? Ecology check is understanding that there could be positive elements in the present state. Although we haven't reached our goal yet, there could be some positive elements in our present state, which we need to preserve even when we achieve our goal. Can you preserve the positives in the present state? Can you carry them over to the desired state? Because at some level, we need to change. At some level, we need to change. Without changing, we'll not be able to reach the goal. And when we change, can we preserve those positive elements? For example, a person who wants to be very rich, that could be his moving towards goal. So it's a very strong moving towards. It could be internally referenced. It could be very specific in terms of VAK. But for that, right, he may not be, he has to lose something, right? Maybe he has to lose his contact with his friends. He needs to lose contact, right? Move away from his family members, not spend enough time with them. So is it okay? That's a very important question. Is it okay when I reach my goal? What will be the positive elements that are in the present state which I can carry over? And is it okay if I lose them? Because reaching a goal and then having regrets is for this? Is it for this that I have worked so hard? Is it for this that I have made so much sacrifices? So this is an ecology check is something very, very important. Most of the times we may fail to do an ecology check. We would still achieve the goal, but still carry over regrets. So the question is, can you anticipate these changes? And is it okay with you?
No. And the gloves are
So I request the participants to keep their mics on mute, please. Okay. So the ecology check is very important. And the problem 2. Problem 2 is a lack of confidence. Remember, the problem 1 is lack of clarity. I may not be knowing what is that I really want. The second is lack of confidence. Where does the lack of confidence come from? The lack of confidence comes from our limiting belief systems. So this is a very important segment in this webinar. I just want you to stay focused. This will be very, very useful in helping you deal with your limiting belief systems. I'll give you some important tools and techniques, right, to help you deal with the limiting belief systems. This is something I would say very, very powerful with NLP. NLP works on the beliefs and value systems and helps create in very strong and sustainable changes. The altitude of our goals depend on the altitude of our belief systems. We may not be able to set a goal beyond our belief systems. These are called as limiting beliefs. So how do we deal with the limiting belief? Before that, let's try and answer this question. What is a belief? Let us look at two anecdotes that you might have heard. Right? One anecdote is very common in personal development circles. The other anecdote is something very, very inspiring to me. So I will share these two anecdotes. Let's quickly go over them to understand what is meant by a belief. The story of Roger Bannister, most of you would have heard about it, the 4-minute mile. So initially, right at the start of this century, it was felt that a mile could not be run in 4 minutes. Lots of efforts were being done, but normally it took for an athlete to run a mile more than 4 minutes. So lots of research went into that, and lots of myths started coming out. It is impossible for a human being to run a 4-minute mile. His heart will collapse, his lungs will collapse. It's very difficult. Man is not programmed to run a mile in 4 minutes. That was a general myth available at that time until 6th May 1954, where a person by name Roger Bannister, who was a doctor himself, who was able to run a mile less than 4 minutes. It was exactly 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. But that's not the main thing. That's not the focus here. The record lasted just for 46 days. This is important. A record was broken, which was there for centuries together. And once that record was broken, the record lasted just for 46 days. 20 others were able to do it in the next year. Within the next year, 20 other people, other athletes were able to run the 4-minute mile. Now it is something very common for state level and national level athletes able to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. So what happened in 20 days? Was in 20 days the entire nervous system, the skeleton, muscular system of human beings were reorganized? Definitely not. Something internal changed. So that is the power of a belief system, right? Normally, one of the principles of NLP is if one can do it, it is possible for others to do it. Others to do it. It is based on an NLP presupposition because all of us have the same hardware. The hardware for all of us is the same. Be a brain around 1.5 kilograms at the central nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, or skeletals, like muscular groups. The hardware is the same for most of us. The question is the software. And how do you define the software? Very important questions. And in fact, the software is all our non-technical learnings. We have different types of technical learnings, but the non-technical learnings is our software, and that can be distilled into two different categories. One is the beliefs that we learn and the values that we learn. Our beliefs and values of our software. So the differences are there in our beliefs and value system. The second, which I really love, is the story of George Danzig. This is something so phenomenal. I'm very impressed by this. It helps us to understand the origin of a belief system and how it is possible for us to deal with it. He was a mathematician, 1940, University of California. And here is his story. He was so interested in mathematics class. Please listen carefully. This is so insightful. So he was so interested in mathematics class that he will never miss a mathematics class. But unfortunately, one day he woke up late and he had to rush to a mathematics class, and he was around 20 minutes late. And normally the mathematics professor Normally, right, but teaches very well, and George was very impressed by his teaching. He wouldn't miss a class, but unfortunately was 20 minutes late on this particular day. And this professor had a habit of giving assignments at the end of the class. During the class, he had this habit of giving assignments during his class. And so being late, right, George Danzig put himself right through the back door, right? He came and sat in the classroom without being seen or heard. And he started attending the class, listening to the class, and he saw the board and there were two problems written on the board. So he understood that his understanding was that those two problems were the assignments which the professor has already given, and then he wrote them down. At the end of the class, right, it was, I think it was a Friday, and he wanted to spend his weekend in his native town. So he wanted to finish these assignments and go home. So he started working on these two assignments, and to his surprise, he found them to be very difficult, more difficult than the normal assignments which the professor gives. So he went to the library, did his research, and he was so, I would say, passionately interested, involved in the problems that he took time and he took almost all the night together to solve these two problems. While the dawn was breaking up, he was able to solve these problems. It is said he ultimately solved these two problems, put them in an envelope, wrote his professor's name, put them in the post box for his professor, and then went to his native town. And the entire university erupted on Monday. Everyone was searching for George Danzig, particularly the professor. And it was informed to him that he has gone to his native town, and a car was sent to his native town to pick him up. And John was really confused. Well, he came to the university, right? There was a big crowd, which was obviously in a celebration mood. And the professor, as soon as he alighted from the car, the professor came and hugged him and said, "That's great. You have done a phenomenal achievement." Again, John was completely confused. He didn't know anything about that. Then he asked, "Can you tell me? I'm really confused. Why this celebration? Why are you congratulating me?" And then the professor said, "You solved those two problems." And John said, "Those two problems, those two assignments?" And then the mathematics professor said, "They are not assignments. I told you, no, when I wrote them down, I told you they are not assignments. In fact, there are two problems which are unsolved in the past century. There are two statistical problems which remain unsolved for more than 100 years. I did tell about it when I wrote these two assignments. Didn't you listen?" And John Danzig said, sorry, sir, I was actually late. I didn't hear that. I saw those two problems written on the board and then assumed they were assignments, and then I started solving them. It was very difficult. I had to spend the night throughout, but still I was able to solve them. Now I think you'll be able to understand the power of the belief systems. I don't think any of the other students would have even attempted to try and solve it because they know that they have been unsolved in the past century. Whereas John Danzig was late, and by that he didn't know that they were unsolved for the last century, and he had a momentum, he had a drive, he had a motivation to solve them, and it was possible for him to solve those things. Sometimes, right, being late could be useful, it seems. So those two problems, they are simplex algorithms, and the Mathematical Programming Society has created a George B. Danzig Prize. So I'm just talking about the point is the power of a belief system. Let's go into the organic like structure of a belief. Belief is a generalization. This is a very powerful word which NLP uses, generalization. Generalization is just taking one experience from the past and projecting into the entire future. A person is not afraid of dogs. If one dog bites, then he's afraid of any dog he faces. So let me repeat it. Generalization is taking one experience from the past and projecting it to the entire future. The biting dog. So please focus on this. This is very important. They said that 3 experiences may be sufficient to form a belief system, particularly in young minds. All it requires is 3 experiences, 3 feedbacks, 3 negative feedbacks, particularly during young age. You are not a good public speaker. You are not a good public speaker. You are not a good public speaker. It's three experiences, three feedbacks can create a belief system, a very strong limiting belief system. Strong generalization can become phobias. Phobias are nothing but very strong generalization. If a person gets caught in a lift once, it's a very traumatic, then that can result in claustrophobia. If a person is harmed by a stranger, that could result in xenophobia, fear of strangers. So we need to understand that as little experience as 3 in number may be sufficient to form a belief system. So how do we deal with the beliefs? Understand that beliefs are based on past experiences and need not be true. Dear friends, I hope you are able to understand this insights. The moment we understand that the belief, my belief, need not be true, we empower ourselves. But the problem is we assume that our beliefs are convictions. We are very convinced with our belief systems. At some level, if you're able to understand at an insight level that my beliefs have been my own creations and need not be true. Whether I believe I'm not a good communicator, that is not true. Even my belief that I am a good communicator also need not be true. And so there are no right or wrong beliefs. There are only useful or unuseful beliefs. One of the insights that NLP offers is not to classify things as right or wrong or good or bad. Of course, we live in a family, we live in a society. We need to have concepts of right or wrong, good or bad. But when it comes to personal development, right, when it comes to expressing our full potential, putting them slightly in the back burner and not classifying things as right or wrong or good or bad, but useful or not useful in relation to our long-term goals could be a very useful way of classification. Because what is right here could be wrong somewhere else. What is wrong in some place, some time could become right in some other time. So instead of classifying things as good or bad, right or wrong, if you can try to classify things, right, of course, right, with a sense of morality and ethics, if you can classify things as useful or not useful, that could really empower us. The beliefs, I'm a good communicator, I'm not a good communicator, not really true. But the more a person believes them, the more they appear true for him. So techniques to deal with belief change. See, one thing is we need to identify a limiting belief. We need to become aware of it. And then NLP proposes these 4 techniques or 4 different levels of dealing with the belief system. The logical level is a very important level where we use a model called as a meta model. It's just a sort of questions. Questioning the validity of a belief. If a person believes I'm not a good communicator, how do you know it is true? What is the evidence? And what is the definition of what are the parameters of being a good communicator? Is it true always? Very important. Are you not able to communicate always? And when you are able to communicate well, maybe in certain other contexts, what does that mean? So logically, right, ability to question very specific questions, where we use what questions, where we use how questions, to loosen, to shake the structure over which this belief is perched on. How do you know it is true? And very importantly, when you question the belief where it is not true, where is the belief not true? I'm an unlucky guy. Where is this not true? I'm not a good communicator. Where is this not true? I'm a failure. Where is this not true? No one loves me. Where is this not true? I'm a lazy guy. Where is this not true? So a set of meta-model questions which can bring in huge amount of awareness. And when this is not true, what does that mean? Maybe I'm lucky in certain contexts. What does that mean? I'm communicating very powerfully in certain other contexts. What does that mean? Once we understand the meaning of these questions, right, our beliefs could be replaced. They become weak. The limiting beliefs could become weak, and we'll be able to replace them. The second level is the intuitive level. What the mind cannot see, the eye cannot see. Later, I would want you to just test it out, right? Just close your eye and test your belief system that the sun will rise tomorrow. Normally, we have a strong belief that the sun will rise tomorrow. Check it out. Just close your eyes and think about this belief. Focus on your visualities, visual modes. What is that you see? Maybe you see a sun rising amongst the mountains. Maybe you see a sun rising at the beach. Observe it. And now open your eyes and then close your eyes. And then check this belief. I'm just saying it in a fun-filled way, a light way. Check this belief. Your neighbor is the next Prime Minister of India. I'm just saying it on a light note to check this. Your neighbor is the next Prime Minister of India. Check this belief system. What is that you are able to see? I'm sure there will be a big contrast between your ability to see the sunrise tomorrow and the picture of your neighbor becoming the next Prime Minister. There is nothing wrong in that. I'm just giving it as an example test. So compare those differences. You'll be able to see a lot of differences when you're able to test your belief that the sun will rise tomorrow and your neighbor becoming the next Prime Minister. So you can similarly check a belief system that you are a good communicator. What is that you see? That you are a lucky guy. What is that you see? And you can compare and contrast, right? Please understand. And then you can just take this visual parameters, right? Like the brightness, the size, the color. And if you're able to transfer it to this, transfer it to a belief system which is weak. When you think of yourself as a very powerful communicator, maybe it's not that clear as this belief of seeing the sunrise tomorrow. If you're able to, it's called as a contrastive analysis. If you're able to compare these two and improve what you see with your weak belief system to something as good as your belief system with respect to the sunrise belief, it means that at some deep level, you are accepting yourself as a very powerful communicator. And quickly you will start seeing evidence for that in your current reality. Please understand this fact. What the mind cannot see, the eye cannot see. Then the third is a self-communication level. How do you communicate yourself when you keep on repeating, I'm not good in communicating, I floundered, I'm not lucky enough, something will happen at the last moment and I will lose when this is what your communication, then that defines you. And using affirmations, very powerful affirmations is a very powerful way in which you can reprogram your belief systems. And one thing, the fourth one, which I love is act as if using your body. Just observe a very powerful communicator and mimic him at the physical level, at the tonal level. When a communicator is giving very effective, presenting very effectively, observe his body language and mimic, because which is easy to change, body or mind? Of course, body is easy to change. Even for small moments of time, you can mimic the body language and you can mimic the tonality. And it will give you a sense of feel. How does it feel to be a good communicator? And your nervous system will start picking up that sense, that feeling of being an effective communicator. And you can start going back to that feel again and again. And in reality, you'll be seeing very positive changes. Remember, body and mind are part of the same system. Nlp says so. Our mind state and physiology are deeply connected. And one of the ways to deal with the physiology, with the mind state, to change the mind state, go for a better positive body language. You can choose to do it once in a while, and over a period of time, it becomes much more easy for you. And once you start feeling how good it is to be an effective communicator, the more you go back to it and the more easy it becomes accessible to you. So logical level, questioning the validity of the belief system. Intuitive level, your ability to visualize, because unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined experience. It doesn't know. Remember, what the mind cannot see, the eye cannot see. And become aware of your own communication and using very powerful, intense, focused, custom designed affirmations to communicate with you in a much better way. And then the concept of modeling, using your body language to model people who are getting better results. So first to have the evidence and then start believing. That is a specialty about the sensory. Whereas the logical part will ask you, where is the evidence? Whereas the intuitive part will tell you, first I will believe and then look for evidence. That's a very powerful shortcut for you to change your belief systems at the sensory levels, at the intuitive level also. Hope I'm communicating. So quickly, right, we'll go back to the other two problems quickly. We'll finish off, right, in maybe 10-15 minutes. NLP has several techniques and processes for belief change work at these 4 levels. You can learn these full-fledged NLP training and coaching programs, right? So we spend much time in working practically experiencing these belief change works and value systems. Problem 3 is lack of mood management. Keeping ourselves in positive mind states as much as possible is the key. Also, many resources we have, also the strategies which we have are good. Still, much of the thing depends on our mind state. NLP calls it as a resourceful state. Remember, right? Even very good batsmen, right, become very tentative in the 90s. That's why they are called as the nervous 90s. They may not be able to access those strokes once they are in the nervous 90s because the mind becomes highly fluctuating in nature. But it becomes very important. That's why cricket is said is actually a game that takes place between the 2 ears rather than between the 2 wickets. It's a mind game. So some basic insights about NLP way of emotional intelligence, mood management, again, very, I would say very important. Understanding that there is no bad emotion or even good emotion. So emotions, instead of classifying them as good or bad, we need to understand all our emotions are friends. This is a new take. This is really counterintuitive. But we need to understand all our emotions are friends. They have a message. They are trying to communicate with us. So anger is it good or bad? Definitely neither good nor bad. And that could be very useful. For example, right, people who are very passive need to learn to become angry so that they are able to avoid exploitation. And anger could be a very powerful force if directed, if channelized properly, which can help you take massive action. So anger, neither it is inherently neither good or bad, but right, it could be very useful. So anger simply means your value system has been violated by others. Guilt can mean your value system has been violated by yourself. And fear could simply mean there is a lack of knowledge. So every emotion is communicating something to you. And I would like to focus on this emotion of jealousy. Normally, right? We try to move away from jealousy, but we need to understand jealousy could be very useful. What is the message that jealousy is trying to communicate? We are not jealous about, for example, Hillary and Tenzing, who climbed Mount Everest first. We may not be really jealous about them. We need to understand we are jealous about people who have same skill sets like us. This is a very important insight. When you're jealous about someone, it really means at some level, you know that you have the same skill sets of the other person. He or she is getting better results than you. So jealousy is an indicator, right? That shows you have the same skill sets. So normally, right, two ways of jealousy is compare and despair. We have a tendency to compare and despair. We go into despair mode. Whereas, right, jealousy could be useful when you compare and emulate. Emulate the strategies, emulate the beliefs and value system of the person who gets better. So the concept of model. So jealousy means that you share the same skill sets, but not the results. Once you understand that, you can use jealousy for your own good. So re-examining the value system and creating more well thought out choices can be the key when dealing with unuseful or negative emotions. Awareness is the key. Disassociation for building awareness. Again, a very powerful, important word. Let's talk about disassociation. Disassociation is the ability to observe ourselves from a third position, which is almost impossible for other animals. If you have seen a sparrow looking at a mirror, and it look at its own image and think it's another sparrow. You might have seen that going and picking on the mirror, because the animals don't have the ability to disassociate, whereas human beings have the powerful ability to disassociate. Look at yourself from a third position. For example, there is a my request, please keep your audio on mute, please. There is some background noise. For example, there is a big difference between these two words. I am angry and I have anger in me. I am angry and I have anger in me. I'm angry. I'm very associated with the emotion of anger. I have anger in me. Now I'm objectifying my anger. I'm becoming aware that I'm angry. This is a dissociative state. This is a problem-solving state. Normally we dissociate. Maybe in the heat of a moment, when we have a conflict with someone, we are very associated, say some things that we don't really mean. But after some time, right, we feel regretful. I shouldn't have said that. That's how we have a tendency to disassociate. But can we have a conscious control over the process of dissociation? NLP teaches you very many techniques how to disassociate. I feel it's something very, very useful. Looking at yourself as a third person, the fly on the wall. So there are three positions which are called as perceptual positions in NLP. First position is your own perspective. Second position is from the another person's point of view. How does he or she look at the problem when you have a conflict? The second position is useful for empathy and conflict resolving. Empathy in case when you run a business or when you have to serve a client, the second position is something very important, where you can really understand the needs and wants of the other person. The third position is like a fly on the wall, where you observe from a neutral position, the positions 1 and 2. It's a very interesting conflict resolution technique. The third position is so powerful, it helps create multiple choices. So dissociation is your ability to look at yourself as a third position. Dissociation helps you get a grip over your emotions. It helps you create a gap between the stimuli and the reaction. It helps you create awareness and create more choices. That's why we say the ability to dissociate is problem solving in nature. NLP training program helps you come up with different very many techniques and learn how to dissociate experientially. But do know that life takes place in associated state. I wouldn't want you to be disassociated always. Life is a series of associations and dissociation. For example, when you eat an ice cream, I would want you to be associated so that you enjoy the act of eating the ice cream. But maybe for the second ice cream, you need to disassociate and ask this question: how is the second ice cream going to be useful to you in the long run? So our ability to procrastinate, our ability to break bad habits, the more we learn to dissociate and able to have a control over the process of dissociation will help us in procrastination, will help us in beating addictions. It will help us in managing our moods. It will help us in creating choices, resolving conflicts. Dissociation is a very, very useful tool to have, particularly for like coaches, particularly for conflict resolvers. Okay, so problem 4, creating and sustained positive changes. I'll finish in 5-10 minutes. Understanding and initiating change, right? This is something very, very useful, very significant. I just want you to stay tuned. So how do we define change? NLP defines change as my future not being equal to my past. This is something very, very important. NLP way of defining change is my future need not be equal to my past. I might have been in any which way in my past, but I can choose to design a future that I really want based on my well-formed outcome. So neurological levels of change attributed to Robert Dills is a very, very, I would say, very application-oriented framework. It's in the shape of a pyramid. Let me quickly talk about it shortly. So change could take place at multiple levels. The first level of change is an environment. The environment could change. That could be a disruption, or that could be something positive, or environment could change. So change can take place at an environmental level. And once the environment changes, based on the environment, our behavior could change. We behave based on the context, right? We might be behaving differently in a home. We might be behaving differently in a public space. We might be behaving, our behavior could be different, maybe in our offices, maybe in a marriage. And based on our repeated behavior, our skills and capabilities come. Remember, the more you do something, the more proficient you become at it. Something interesting I just want to share with you, right? Even negative thinking is a skill. Is a skill. If you could choose to look at this way. Let's say there are 199 feedbacks and there is one feedback, one negative feedback. 99 positive feedbacks, one negative feedback. What happens to a skilled negative thinker? He or she has the ability to completely ignore, delete all the 99 positive feedbacks and choose to focus on that one negative feedback with such a level of intense and focus. And he or she is able to do it within moments. Actually, if we consider it, it is a skill. Identifying one thing out of 100 and then choosing to focus on it in a span of seconds is really a skill. And it could be very useful the other way around. When there are so many negativities, if a person has the ability to focus on the few things which are positive, it's the same skill. And that could really empower. So my point here is the more we do certain things again and again, it develops as a skill, either it be negative or positive. And depending on our skills and capabilities, we tend to develop our beliefs and value systems. So please understand, beliefs is about capability. I can do this, I cannot do this. Values is about this is important, this is not important. So beliefs is about capability. Let me repeat it. Belief is about capability. I can do this, I cannot do this. Whereas value system is about importance. This is important to me, this is not important. These are our right summum bonum of our software. These are the summum bonum of our non-technical learning, the beliefs and values. And they come into existence based on right our own experiences with what we are capable of doing and what we think is important or not. And based on our beliefs and values, my dear friends, comes the concept of identity. How do we define ourselves? Based on our beliefs and values. And from our identity comes our purpose, vision, and mission. I hope I'm communicating. So normally, right, we look at the change process like this. So the one thing, right, that is one insight is if a lower level changes, the higher level has a 50% chance, right? May or may not change, not necessarily that 50%. If the lower level changes, the higher level may or may not change. May or may not. I'll repeat it. If a lower level changes, the higher level may or may not change. So the environment changes, the behavior may or may not change. If the behavior changes, the skill or capability may or may not be developed. But if a higher level changes, the lower level will change. There are lots of examples in our history. Overnight, there could be a change in the identity, particularly traumas. Very powerful traumas can result in change in identity just like that. And once the identity changes, the change down is very, very fast. And one word, one speech, one insight can create a very strong change in our identity or in our beliefs and value systems. Particularly, NLP is said to work very powerfully on the beliefs and value systems so that the change down is much faster and much more sustainable. I hope I'm communicating. And remember, environment is not just the things around you, it is how you see your environment, how you see your current reality. When the identity changes, you'll be able to see the world in a different perspective. When you change, right, the things around you also change. So environment is not necessarily what is around you, it is how you see them. So if a lower level changes, upper level may or may not change, but if a higher level changes, the lower level will change. Understanding and initiating change, right, is the top-down approach is very, very useful. We can start creating changes at the identity level or the beliefs and values level, right? NLP works very powerfully at beliefs and values level so that the skills and capabilities, behavior, and the environment becomes much more easier and sustainable to change. So creating at the changes of levels of purpose, identity, values, beliefs can be very, very effective. So if I want to be a regular exerciser, which is at a behavior level, how can I connect my daily exercising with a long-term value or purpose can be an empowering question. Let me go back here. Yeah, if you want to create a change at the level of behavior, the importance is, can you connect it to your higher level, particularly the identity level of you exercising, and can you connect it to the purpose in which exercising can help you achieve the purpose, vision, or mission. So yes, we exercise for health, we exercise for fitness, that's okay, that's useful. But going beyond that, if you can connect the behavior of exercising and develop it as a skill or a capability, if you can connect it at the level of your identity, who you want to be, what type of person you want to be, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, and how is exercising today is going to help you with that. That ability to connect a specific change in behavior to a higher level of change and identity and purpose creates some magic. So this neurological levels of change, right, can really be very empowering. So what we have seen so far on this journey is from confusion to clarity, problem one, from tentativeness to confidence, problem number two, from reaction to proaction, having a reasonable control over mind states and moods, and from stagnation to purposeful growth-oriented living. Right? These are the four major problems, right, that people that make people stuck in their life, career, or business, and these are the solutions which NLP provides. So NLP helps us very powerfully. So I would request you do start contemplating and applying these changes in your life. I do hope that this webinar has been of use to you. As a next step in learning NLP further, I would like to inform you, maybe I'll take the next 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. I would like to inform you about my paid learning programs where I can spend more time with you. But I believe that you would have been able to find the utility value of NLP. But I can spend, however, if you can go through a very systematic and organized programs, right, that would be of more use to you, where I can spend more time with you, understand your needs at a much more deeper level, and help you to explore your full potential using NLP. So that's the next step in learning NLP with me. So my training programs, NLP certification programs at diploma, basic, and master's levels. I also run a success from within NLP-based group coaching programs for executives and business owners. Dare Something Worthy, my one-to-one coaching program. That is one program which I do, which I also do. I find huge value in all these programs. And I do have my online NLP courses. So further learning opportunity, those of you who are really interested in learning more deeply about these ways can join me an upcoming NLP diploma program happening this weekend, right? Next Saturday and Sunday. It's a certified NLP program, NLP diploma program. Dates are 26th, 27th March. Right, completing this program successfully will give you NLP diploma program certification. And the time is 9:30 to 5:30 p.m. It's an online program done over Zoom, much similar to what is happening here. It will be facilitated by me. It will be highly experiential in nature. The sense we'll be having lots of discussions, lots of breakout room activities, lots of interaction. So what can you learn here? In a gist, I'm giving this how people operate, the two basic paradigms of human behavior. This is something very powerful that you'll be able to learn. How people form perceptions, right? Our ability to dissociate, understand people. The three psychological filters of map creation, what is happening inside our mind. I believe the biggest challenge for any modern manager is not technology. It is about understanding the human mind. How people learn, the three ways of preferential learning. How people transform, the 5 questions which help people transform. How people process information. Right, the ways of people processing, everyone have their unique ways of processing. We'll be able to learn about that. How to set well-formed outcomes, how to deal with negative beliefs at a much more deeper experiential level, how to access positive mind states, anchoring. Very quickly, how we'll be able to choose, right, which mind state, maybe confidence, maybe happiness, maybe a state of relaxation. Using the techniques of anchoring, how we'll be able to, right, access more positive mind states. And very importantly, the switch technique, which can help you to remove negative habits and create positive habits. So how people operate, the 2 basic paradigms, how people form perceptions, the 3 psychological filters, which will help you in self-coaching, coaching others, training people, dealing with people, the 3 ways of preferential learning, so that you can use these learnings to influence people on a win-win basis, on a positive basis, and the 5 questions which will help people transform. Very, very important question. And how do people process information? How you can become aware of the processing of information so that you can understand people better, and how to set well-formed outcomes for yourself and also help people set well-formed outcomes, a healthy balance between moving towards and moving away. How to deal with the negative beliefs at a more experiential level, how to access positive mind states, the anchoring, having reasonable control over mind states. It's a very, very useful learning. And how to remove negative habits and how to create new habits, the switch technique, right? These are the things that we learn. And how to use all these on self for self-coaching and also for coaching others. So program details, Zoom online live, dates 26, 27 March, the next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Timing from 9:30 to 5:30 with breaks. Sometimes, right, it goes beyond, right? It goes up to 6 to 6:30. You need to be prepared for that. Very limited number of participants so that I can choose to focus more on about the participants at a much more deeper level. And there is a complimentary bonus membership to my Passion with NLP group, where you can have opportunity for continuous learning through my complimentary webinars. I do special complimentary webinars for this Passion with NLP group, for a period of 1 year and resource material for a period of 1 year. This is a complementary bonus so that there is a scope for us to learn continuously, keep on learning, keep on interacting with me, where we learn in the process. That is a complementary bonus for 1 year. Who can be benefited? Trainers, coaches, psychologists who want to improve their skill sets, executives who want to have more faster and more focused career growth, team leaders who want to have I would say more rapport with their team members, help them, coach them better, mentor them better, faculty members who want to have good understanding about the students and develop more methodologies, very effective methodologies in their teaching activities, organizational leaders, particularly in settings, designing scope of their purpose, vision and mission, and business owners who want to use NLP holistically for both their personal and professional development, who want to expand their business. NLP is very, very generic and it can be very specifically application oriented in whichever sphere you want to create growth and development. So here is the pricing. The pricing for this program is rupees 10,500, including tuition and certificate and the bonus of 1 year. There is an early bird offer of rupees 8,500, valid up to coming Wednesday. Rupees 8,500 coming up to Wednesday. But for today, for our special, very super early bird offer, for this webinar attendees, the discounted pricing is rupees 7,500 1 year. So I think this program could really be of use to you. And I would really want you to consider these learnings, which I explained earlier, along with the bonus, because continuous learning is very, very important, right? It's not just 2 days of learning. You have scope for learning continuously. That's, I think, is very critical, particularly when you want to learn NLP. So for those of you who are interested in attending my training program, you can connect with me. Here's my mobile number, 9441288486. Just connect with me WhatsApp, send me a message. And I want to have a small discovery session before you enroll for the program. This is important, right? I want you to really understand what are your very specific objectives. And I also want to ensure that I can really help you out, right? I want to ensure that there is a mutual fit between you and me in terms of me understanding what is that you want to learn NLP for, and be sure that I can help. So please send me a WhatsApp message. We can have a very small, maybe 10-15 minutes discovery session where I can get your specific objectives for wanting to learn NLP. At the same time, we can ensure a mutual fit. That is what I want to ensure before you enroll for the program. So that's about it, right? Hope you have taken my mobile number, 9441288486. So we can have a small discovery session later before you enroll for the program, to ensure that you are a mutual fit. So that's about it, right? Maybe 5 minutes. I can allow for any questions and answers. So if you have any questions, you can unmute, you can use the chat box. Okay, so like those of you who are interested, please connect with me. We can have a small discovery session and we can take it forward. Will it help the way we communicate? Yes, definitely. As I said, right, it's all about awareness. The more we understand that we communicate in a very specific way and we get very specific results. And if we like the results, we can continue communicate in the same way. Or else, right, once we understand that the way in which I'm communicating is not helping me, is not getting what I want, then it becomes imperative on us to change our communication patterns. So how do we communicate differently? That's the first thing. NLP has lots of, I would say, answers for that, solutions for that, to help you communicate differently. Right? One thing that NLP can help you empower is move into a conversational tone, right? Which I believe is very, very important. rather than authoritative tone or a monotonous tone. NLP puts very good importance on a conversational tone, how to put yourself in a conversational tone, how to ask questions, what type of questions should not be asked, phenomenal, right? Please understand your ability to build rapport. NLP is very good in building rapport, helps you to match, and then over a period of time helps you to lead and then match again. So it's a healthy dance between matching and mismatching that you can have with people, which can be both useful for you and the other person. So it helps you come up with very wonderful questions. It helps you become aware of your tonality and what is the tone that you need to change. And it also helps you to, right, help you dissociate, focus more, observe more, try to understand the needs and wants of the other person. The applications are limitless. Okay, any other questions? When people are harsh, how we can handle them, right? So again, right now, we need to understand that there is a positive intention behind every behavior. It might be slightly, right? It might look controversial, but we need to understand that people do something because they have a positive intention behind it. People smoke because the positive intention could be relaxation. And people are harsh because by being harsh, they are trying to achieve something. And we need to understand what is the positive intention. Sometimes we need also call it as a secondary gain. We need to understand what is the person is trying to achieve by being harsh. And if we can help him reach that need without being harsh, he will naturally drop being harsh because he himself, he or she themselves knows the side effects or the negativities of being harsh. So there is an inherent need. There is some value that the individual is trying to fulfill by being harsh. Once we understand that, we can help the individual fulfill that need, provided we have an engagement, right? We need to engage, right? We need not go and correct everyone who is harsh. If there is a significance for that person in our lives, if he's a significant person in our life, then it matters, because we can't be dealing with the harsh behavior always. At the same time, we need to, right, we need to separate the person from the behavior. NLP talks about it very profoundly. Separate the person from the behavior. We need to try and understand what is the value that the person is trying to achieve by being harsh. Maybe the person has learned to be harsh and that has been useful to him. But we need to somehow understand, make him understand that being harsh always will not be useful. So we need to, at some level, right, use probing questions, empathize with him, do your dissociation technique, observe him, develop a rapport with him or her. And we need to open channels of communication. I know it's a challenge, but we need to start somewhere. And once we understand the need which the individual is trying to fulfill by being harsh, maybe we can help. Right? We can help him to look at the world in a better way. Right? It would be really difficult to look at the world in a harsh way. Maybe that could be so many things that are not working for him. So if we can have some empathy, we can help him to look at the world in a better way. That is possible. I hope I have a minute. Yes, can we understand a customer better? Yes, we need to understand the person better, because sometimes our customers doesn't even know what is the they really want. So we need to really probe. So NLP puts high importance on probing questions so that you can understand the map of the person and meeting the person at their map, at their model of the world is very important. How can you understand? First, you need to develop rapport, make the person trust you. And trust building is a lengthy process. It may happen quickly. I don't deny that. But are you aware? Are you having a proper strategy so that people can get introduced to you and come to know you on a bit by bit basis? If it is a business, very simply, do you have a funnel system where you can take a person, where you can take a client on a journey, on an increasingly deeper journey, so that the main idea is for your client to know about three things which you have: your knowledge, your commitment, and sincerity. Are you giving a chance for your client to understand you in terms of your knowledge, your sincerity and commitment. And once you are able to make the client understand your sincerity, knowledge and commitment, the trust building happens. And once the trust is built, then you can ask probing questions and try and understand what does the client really want, and then help him out. Right? So trust building or rapport building is much more important, precedes the concept of understand. Hope I have communicated. So first build rapport, build trust, and then ask probing questions. Will it help us in spontaneous speaking? Which, yeah. See, in fact, right, NLP is all about living in a very spontaneous. It's a very important question, right? Ultimately, as I sense it, NLP puts us in a high performance, no content state. We call it as an HPNC state. High performance, non-content, a flow state. Sports people would be aware of this, right? So that is a zone in which even if the sports person wants to make a mistake, he cannot make a mistake. So living life spontaneously, yes, I would say that's a focus of NLP, right? As you learn more and more NLP is at multiple levels. There is a diploma level, then there is a basic level, which is again a 2-day program, and then there is a master's level, which is a 4-day program. If a person is, if a student is interested, he or she can go through all those levels. And ultimately, as you learn NLP, you would be able to understand that NLP makes you being more spontaneous, right? Not impulsive. There is a difference between being impulsive and spontaneous. Living a life more spontaneously, responding to events happening around us at an unconscious or an intuitive level, right? That is the least stressful. So being very natural, being very authentic, being very spontaneous, NLP's focus and purpose is towards such a living. That's my view. Okay, will you give some tips for public speaking, right? One thing which I have learned is don't try to impress, try to express, right? When you try to impress people, right, it could put you in a state of stress. It could put you in a state of stress, and it could make you focus on more on the results. But on the other hand, instead of trying to impress, right, you can try to express yourself, right? So how do you express yourself? You need to be a person who knows what you are good at, what you can speak naturally, and you need to choose that topic. That is where your branding comes, right? It's not a lengthy list where you can speak about so many other things. Of course, there is a possibility that you can do that. Over a period of time, you can gain expertise in many areas and start speaking in many topics. But one thing which I would ask you to do is start with one area in which you are very comfortable, so that you can deliver your speech very authentically. So you have gone through the experience the results yourself, and you know it could work for others. If you speak from that space of application and seeing the results, that could put you at much ease where you're able to express yourself. The rest of the techniques, right? There is a start, there is a beginning, there is an end. Those things can be learned. But what is much more important is being in tune with what is that topic, what is that subject with which you can create a value for listeners. So once you start with that, then you can create your own structures, you can create your own strategies, right? So don't try to impress, try to express, be authentic about what you feel good about yourself, and focus on what is the value that you can create based on your own learning and application experiences. That would be my tip. How long it will take to become specialist in NLP? Yeah, so it again, right, depends on your involvement and participation, right? The more you participate in the training programs, and the more you start applying, and more you start, I would say, going for a continuous learning, it's self-learning, I would say, is good. So generally, the time frame in NLP is exploding. What I would say is start at a smaller chunk, and then chunk it up, chunk the learning process in different levels. Start at the smallest chunk, apply it, see the results, get inspired, and then move to the next level. That would be my suggestion. So it takes actually different times for different people. So it's very, I would say, it's person based. Many times we cross different personalities. How do we cope up with them? Again, we need to understand people are having their own struggles. They are having their own battles, right? People are fighting their own battles. And so we need to understand what is their value system, right? Very importantly, I would say, right, start with the significance in their life, right? How significant are they in your life? If they are very significant, you need to deal with them. They are not very significant, you can deal on a working basis. That's what I say. You need not go and do an NLP intervention for everyone you meet. And you need to do an NLP intervention only based on invitation. Let me repeat this. This is very, very important. You need to do an NLP intervention only there is an invitation. The other context in which you can do is based on your authority. Suppose you are a boss and you need to coach or teach someone down below, then you can do an NLP intervention. Otherwise, you need to do an NLP intervention only based on an invitation. So you need to understand the significance. It's not necessarily you go and coach and correct everyone. There is nothing like that, right? So you need to understand the significance of the person in your life. How significant does that person mean to you? If it's very significant, he or she is very significant, you can choose to do NLP interventions based on your authority. You are a boss or you are a family member, then you can choose to work with an NLP interventions. Again, the entire framework is there. Ultimately, everything matters that there is a positive intention behind every behavior. That is one thing. And every people's behavior is their own choice, right? Once we understand that, another element is every behavior is useful in some context. So two things, again, let me repeat. There is a positive intention behind every behavior, and all behaviors are people's own choices. And how do you deal with them? You take responsibility, right? The meaning of the communication is the response you get. When you get a particular response from a person, it means that you have communicated in that particular way. So NLP puts heavy responsibility on the sender's shoulders. If you don't like the response, you need to change so that you get a better response. So taking the ownership for the response that is being elicited by people around us, we need to take responsibility for that and be flexible in our communications. Another thing is NLP's principle, very useful NLP principle is people cannot not communicate. People are always communicating. Silence is a form of a communication. Presence is a form of a communication. Absence is a form of a communication. People are always communicating. The question is, are we observant enough? And are we having the ability to open communication channels, invite them for an open and honest discussion, ask questions with the conversation tone, with the sense of win-win, try and understand them and see what could be done to help them. Right? When you start helping people, the relationships improve. Okay, right. So any other questions? I'm planning to conduct classes fully in Tamil also. Maybe I'll start doing them fully. There are lots of requirements coming. So I'll be doing that in Tamil. I'll let you know, sir. Bhaskar sir, I'll let you know once I. But even our English programs are right, very simple English based. But still, I can do programs in Tamil also. No issues. I'll be planning for them. So, thank you. Right one, yeah. So yes, I can do that in Tamil. There are lots of inquiries coming to do in Tamil. I'll be doing that in Tamil. Quickly, soon I'll be doing that. I'll try and decide that. Okay, so thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. So those of you who are interested, please connect with me on my WhatsApp number 9444. My number here. And you can connect with me, my WhatsApp number. So thank you very much. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your cooperation. I hope this program had been of use to you. So from the base of my heart, I wish you all the best. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you. All the best.